Empire between two seas. Master of the steppe. The 10th century. Between the Caspian and the Black Sea lies a power every neighbor fears, the Khazar Khaganate. For 3 centuries the Khazars have held the steppe roads of Eastern Europe. No merchant and no army passes them by, and everyone pays. By the mid-10th century, the Khaganate had ruled the Great Steppe for almost 300 years. Itil on the Volga. The heart of the Khaganate is Itil, a city at the mouth of the Volga. 2 worlds meet here, furs and honey come from the north, silk and silver from the south. The Khazars produce almost nothing themselves. Their gold mine is tolls, 1/10 of every caravan and every boat. Itil stood at the crossroads of world trade and lived as a giant customs house. 2 rulers. The Khazar system of power amazed contemporaries. The Kagan was a sacred figure, almost no one ever saw him, and looking him in the face was forbidden. All real business, war, treasury, justice, was run by another man, the Bek. One reigns, the other rules. The dual rule of Kagan and Bek existed nowhere but Khazaria, a system unheard of in its day. The faith of the elite. Another riddle of the Khaganate, around the 8th or 9th century, the Khazar elite converted to Judaism, an almost unique case in the medieval world. Ordinary Khazars, meanwhile, remained Muslims, Christians or pagans. The empire lived like a noisy bazaar of faiths and tongues. The faith of its elite remains one of the great riddles Khazaria left behind. The Kagan's letter. We know Khazaria's voice firsthand. Around the year 960, Kagan Joseph, the last known ruler of the Khaganate, sent a letter to a dignitary in far-off Spain, Hasdai ibn Shaprat. In it he proudly lists the subject peoples who pay him tribute. And among them, Slavic tribes. Kagan Joseph's correspondence is one of the few documents where Khazaria speaks about itself. Tribute from the Slavs. For centuries, some Slavic tribes paid the Khazars, a silver coin and a squirrel pelt per hearth, from every household. Sounds modest? Multiply it by thousands of homesteads and decades of years. It was the price of living under foreign power. Against this backdrop of tribute, the future lands of Rus grew up. The legend of the swords. The chronicle preserves a legend. When the Khazars demanded tribute from the Polans, the tribe around Kiev, they were sent swords instead of silver. The elders studied the weapons and told the Kagan, our saber has 1 edge, their sword has 2. One day they will take tribute from us. The legend of the swords is the chronicle's prophecy. Rus would come to claim its own. Rus Gathers Strength. Young Rus. Meanwhile, on the Dnieper a young state is gaining strength, Rus, centered on Kiev. It is not yet a century old, but it has what matters, warlike princes, river routes, and a hunger to trade without middlemen. By the 10th century the Khaganate had a dangerous neighbor, and a rival for the very same trade routes. Oleg intercepts the tribute. The first to defy the Khazars was Prince Oleg, the man who united Kiev and Novgorod. In the 880s he told the Severians and Radimichs, "Pay nothing to the Khazars, pay me." And so the tribute that had flowed to Itil began draining away to Kiev. For now, without a great war. From the 880s onward, Rus was prying the Slavic tribute out of Khazar hands, step by step. The Vyatichs under the Khaganate. But one large tribe still remained under the Khazars, the Vyatichs, a forest people on the Oka River. They paid the Khaganate a silver coin per plough. Distant Itil could still reach into the Russian forests. The Vyatichs, the last Slavic tribe paying tribute to the Khaganate, were waiting for their hour. The Silver Road. There was a second score to settle with the Khazars: trade. The Great Volga route led from Rus to the riches of the east: silver, fine cloth, spices. And on that route stood Itil with its 10% toll. Every 10th dirham of the Rus merchants ended up in the Kagan's treasury. As long as Itil controlled the Volga, Rus traded with the east only by Khazar permission. Olga and the heir. In Kiev in those years ruled Princess Olga, widow of Prince Igor, killed while collecting tribute. A woman of hard temper and long calculation. She held the state together while her son Sviatoslav grew up. And the boy grew into a warrior and nothing else. Olga preserved Rus for her son and handed him a state ready for a great war. The Warrior Prince. Portrait of a Predator. The chronicle paints Sviatoslav like this: on campaign he moved light, like a pardus, the old Rus word for a hunting leopard. No wagon trains, no tent. He slept on the ground with a saddle under his head. Roasted meat over coals. Dressed like a common warrior, and fought in the front rank. A chief in the saddle, the first soldier of his own army, that is how the chronicle remembered Sviatoslav. An army without baggage. His druzina matched its leader, hardened fighters built for speed. Rivers for roads, longboats for carts, and speed in place of numbers. The mobility of his druzina became Sviatoslav's greatest weapon. I am coming for you. Sviatoslav had a custom remembered for 1,000 years. Before a war he would send the enemy a 3-word message: I come upon you. Why throw away surprise? The logic is cold: let the enemy gather his forces in one place, then break them with a single blow instead of chasing them across the whole country. I come upon you was not chivalry but a general's arithmetic. The meeting on the Oka. In 964 Sviatoslav led his druzina to the Oka, to the Vyatichs, and asked them a single question: to whom do you pay tribute? The answer: to the Khazars. That was enough. The prince did not touch the Vyatichs, his target lay farther east. The march to the Oka in 964 was reconnaissance before the strike at the Khaganate itself. Choosing the target. The reasons for war with the Khaganate itself all converged on one point: the Khazars held the Volga, taxed the Vyatichs, and stood between Rus and the east. He could have spent a generation winning back the tribute tribe by tribe. Sviatoslav chose differently: strike at the very heart of the power. Sviatoslav chose the boldest option of all, a war to destroy Khazar power outright. The blow falls. The campaign begins. In 965 Sviatoslav set out on a campaign that would enter every textbook. Historians piece the exact route together from fragments, most likely down the Oka and the Volga, where no Rus longboats had ever been seen. The campaign of 965 had begun. For the first time, Rus marched deep into the Khazar realm. The Kagan rides out. Khazaria accepted the challenge, and, as the chronicle underlines, the Kagan himself rode out against Sviatoslav, the sacred ruler his subjects almost never saw. When a living god is led onto the battlefield, his empire has nothing left in reserve. The Kagan himself led the army against Sviatoslav. Khazaria staked everything. Battle on the steppe. Of the battle itself the chronicle says almost nothing, and in the battle, Sviatoslav overcame the Khazars. One line, and behind it a whole day of steel and blood. Most likely, the Rus shield wall stood firm against the steppe cavalry, and broke it. In the steppe battle of 965, Sviatoslav broke the Kagan's army. The rout. The main army of the Khaganate ceased to exist. There was nowhere, and no one, from whom Khazaria could raise another. The road into the depths of the Khaganate lay open. The destruction of the Kagan's army decided the whole war in a single day. Sarkel, the White Fortress. On the Don stood the jewel of Khazar defense, Sarkel, the White House. It was built to impress, fired brick, towers, a standing garrison. History's irony, Byzantium helped the Khazars build it, a century before Sviatoslav, when the enemy was a different tribe of nomads. Sarkel was the main Khazar fortress on the western frontier, and the prince's next target. Belaya Vezha. Sarkel fell at the first assault. But Sviatoslav did not burn the fortress. He kept it. The city received a Russian name, Belaya Vezha, the White Tower. From a Khazar outpost it became a Rus one. In 965 Sarkel became the Russian Belaya Vezha. Rus had planted itself on the Don. The Yasas and the Khazags. On the same campaign, the chronicler adds, Sviatoslav defeated the Yasas and the Khazags, ancestors of today's Ossetians and Circassians, the Khaganate's allies in the North Caucasus. The Khaganate was losing more than armies and fortresses, whole peoples were falling away from it. Victory over the Yasas and Khazags tore Khazaria's Caucasian allies away from it. The Ashes of Itil. Down the Volga. The road now led where no Rus army had ever gone, to the capital of the Khaganate. The exact date is disputed. Arab sources place the blow against Itil in the late 960s. Some historians believe there were two campaigns. The Volga March brought Sviatoslav to the very gates of Itil. Itil is doomed. There was no one left to defend the capital, the army had died on the steppe, and the Kagan had lost both his troops and his face. The richest city of Eastern Europe could only hope for a miracle. No miracle came. After the army's destruction on the steppe, Itil was left defenseless. A city in ashes. Itil was taken and sacked. The giant customs house on the Volga closed forever. And with the city burned the whole machinery of Khazar power, the treasury, the Kagan's court, the trading houses. With the fall of Itil, the Khaganate lost its capital, and with it, its reason to exist. An eyewitness account. The Arab geographer Ibn Hawqal wrote down the refugee stories. His line about ruined Semender became famous: there remained, not a grape, not a raisin. For a southern merchant this was the end of the world, where bazaars had roared for centuries, silence and ash. Ibn Hawqal's notes read like an obituary for the Khazar trading empire. Semender. Semender suffered too, the old Khazar capital on the Caspian shore, a city of gardens and vineyards. According to the same Ibn Hawqal, the survivors scattered to the islands and the mountains, and were afraid to return. Semender, the former capital of the Khaganate, shared the fate of Itil. The end of the cities. Khazaria had been an empire of cities and tolls. Sviatoslav took both away. The Khazars could still roam the steppe. Collect tribute from half of Eastern Europe, never again. By the end of the 960s, urban Khazaria was gone. The end of the Khaganate. The power crumbles. The Khaganate was not killed by a single blow, it crumbled like a house with its main beam knocked out. Tributaries stopped paying. Mercenaries drifted away. Borderlands fell off. By the century's end, people spoke of the Khazar power in the past tense. After Sviatoslav's campaign, the Khaganate never recovered. Rus outposts. Where Khazar power had been, Rus strongholds appeared. Belaya Vezha held the Don. And on the Taman Peninsula there soon arose the Principality of Tmutarakan, a Rus outpost at the very edge of the Black Sea. The Don and Taman turned from Khazar borderlands into Rus frontiers. The steppe gates are open. But the victory had a hidden cost. Even in decline, Khazaria had served as a barrier between the deep steppe and Rus. Now the barrier was gone. The Pecheneg, already roaming near the borders of Rus, became full masters of the steppe, and after them came the Cumans, for centuries to come. The fall of the Khaganate opened the steppe hordes' road to the borders of Rus. Where did the Khazars go? The Khazars themselves did not vanish overnight, remnants of the people lived on in the lower Volga and in Crimea for decades. But a people without a state dissolved among its neighbors. By the end of the 11th century, mentions of the Khazars fade out entirely. Within a century of the defeat, the Khazars disappeared from the pages of history. The reckoning. Count the results. In a few years Sviatoslav crushed a power that had kept half of Eastern Europe in fear for nearly 3 centuries. The Vyatichs were freed from foreign tribute. The Volga route was open. Rus fortresses stood on the Don and the Taman. Sviatoslav's campaign redrew the map of Eastern Europe in a matter of years. The price of victory. The Danube Dream. Sviatoslav did not stop. The Danube called to him, move the capital from Kiev to Pereyaslav, closer to the riches of Byzantium. The Khazar victory was, for him, merely a running start before a new great war. After Khazaria, Sviatoslav threw everything at the Balkans, against Byzantium itself. Death at the Rapids. The Balkan War ended in a hard-won peace. In the spring of 972, returning home with a small druzina, Sviatoslav walked into a Pecheneg ambush at the Dnieper rapids. The prince died fighting. Legend says the Pecheneg Khan Kuria had his skull bound in gold and made into a feasting cup. In 972 the conqueror of Khazaria died at the hands of the steppe nomads, the very people the Khazar barrier no longer held back. What Rus gained? Rus rid itself of its rival, and reached the southern seas. Eastern trade now flowed without the Khazar tithe. For the first time, the young state felt itself a great power. Victory over the Khaganate made Rus the leading force of Eastern Europe. The historians dispute. Historians argue to this day. Some call the destruction of Khazaria the greatest victory of early Rus arms. Others point to the price. The steppe barrier collapsed, and for 300 years anxiety settled on the southern borders of Rus. The victory of 965 was a triumph with a bitter aftertaste, and the argument over its price is not finished yet. The Khazar mirage. Of the vast power almost nothing remains, no books, no cities, no descendants who remember the kinship. Historians compare it to a mirage. It was there, and it melted away. And Sviatoslav's war became a model of strategy, a few seasons of ruthless focus, and an empire was gone. So ended the 200-year shadow over the Slavic lands. The Khazar Khaganate vanished almost without a trace, and Sviatoslav's blow remains forever in the military history of Rus.